Morning gang. Do you remember a decade ago now when the campaigning for the Brexit vote and the Brexit referendum was in its full throes, and there was the Boris bus, the bus that he paraded, which said £350 million a week extra to be spent on the NHS. And at the time all the Remainers said that was a load of rubbish, was never going to happen. And then after the vote, and pretty much ever since, the one line they keep coming up with was, where was the £350 million for the NHS? Where was the £350 million for the NHS? That was all rubbish. We never got the £350 million for the NHS. Well, I've got some figures for you. So have a listen and have a digest of this. So in 2015, expenditure on the NHS was 151 point something billion pounds a year. This year, 2025, it's going to be 203 or 204 billion pounds. So it's over 50, I think it's 52.8 billion pounds a year higher this year than it was back in 2014, 2015. So 52.8 billion pounds, that's £1 billion a week more being spent on the NHS now than it was back in 2015. So we didn't just get £350 million a week more, we got 3 times that amount. Sorry, I had to stop, it suddenly got very windy. So my point is not that Brexit gave us that money, but my point is that there's now £1 billion every week more being spent on the NHS than there was a decade ago. £1 billion a week. Wrap your head around that amount, it's a huge amount of money. Would you say the NHS has improved in the last decade? Would you say you're getting better service now from your GPs, from your hospitals, from waiting lists, from surgery, from any area of the NHS? So the point is that just spending money on it is not going to improve it. It's about how that money is spent, where that money is spent, the number of people requiring the service. But it also puts to bed the whole lie, the Ramona argument that the vote was won purely based on lies. Because it turns out they weren't lies, but it hasn't made any difference anyway. It's not about the money. The whole argument was never about the money. It's about who decides where that money goes, how the money is spent, and who is in the country for it to be spent on. So just to repeat those figures again, 2014-15, 151 point something billion pounds a year. 2025-26, 204 billion pounds a year, give or take a couple of hundred million. 52.8 billion pounds a year more being spent on the NHS, and yet we've got a worse service.